Good morning, Petra, and welcome to the iGaming Next podcast.
Thank you very much.
We were just saying we just switched over to English now, because usually we are used to speaking Chinese with each other.
Exactly.
But we go over to English for the viewers' sake today. Petra, it's really nice to have you with us today, and this is actually the first time that we are recording this podcast in the morning, actually.
Really? Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Do you have your coffee next to you or something? Have you?
No, I don't, unfortunately. I already had like 3 or 4 cups of coffee, so now I just have a glass of water next to me here. I think that's better for my heartbeat.
Yeah, that's true actually, and this is a fact that I wanted to share this morning because I was thinking about that. Did you know, Petra, that Swedes are the second highest coffee drinkers in the world?
I did, and the Finnish guys are drinking most coffee, right? Is that true?
Yeah, the Finns are the biggest coffee drinkers in the world, funnily enough. And you wouldn't think so. Most people, I think, are the Italians. They would think, or something like that. But the Nordics, we are the hardcore ones. And it's a true fact actually that the Swedes are drinking per capita, per person. Every single person in the entire country drinks three cups of coffee per day. The entire country on average. So,
do you count in the kids then as well, or?
So on average, including...
on an average.
Yeah.
That the ones that have actually started drinking coffee from like 15 or something must have 6 cups or something.
Yeah, exactly. They are lifting the average decently. Yeah. So, and I am actually decreasing that average because I am not a coffee drinker actually, which means that I am a little... not even tea. I like tea, but it makes my tummy a little bit so I can't even do that. So I'm a little bit of a slow starter in the morning. That's where I wanted to lead to actually.
Okay, so that's why this is the first time. Well, I'm a really early starter in the mornings actually. I go up at 5 every morning more or less.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
you're one of those.
I'm one of those, unfortunately. But then also I go to bed at 9 or something in the evening. So I only have like 1.5 hours with the family before I fall asleep every evening. Okay. So I don't know if that's good or bad having that kind of time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So Petra, you're the CMO of Svenska Spel, the Swedish state lottery, basically, and you've done an interesting journey because you come from the industry and you have switched to the state operator. Usually, you would hear it's the opposite, actually. Can you take us through a little bit your journey within the iGaming industry and how you ended up in Svenska Spel?
Yeah, of course. But just to start with clarifying something, I'm actually the CMO at Svenska Spel Sports and Casino. So Svenska Spel is divided into 3 different business areas, you can say. And this is not well known from everyone, but Sports and Casino is the company that is in the licensed market in Sweden. But then we have the lotteries, for example, that is a different business area. And then we have the land-based casino. So I do not take care of the marketing and sales on those side of Svenska Spel, but it's only sports and casino, just to clarify things. But how I ended up here, I don't know. Isn't everything like that? It just happens, right? But I was working in the broadcasting company in Sweden called CMO. So we owned, for example, at the time we had the rights to sports right for the biggest leagues in Sweden for football and ice hockey and all of that. So it was kind of connected to the iGaming industry or the gaming industry. And then an old colleague of mine moved to Malta to start with LeoVegas. Must have been 4 years ago maybe. And he brought me with him basically. So it was, I don't know if it was some kind of midlife crisis or something, but I took my whole family and moved to Malta. I have 2 kids. One was 1 year old at the time and one was 6. So we moved to Malta and I started at LeoVegas as head of sales. Then was my first position at LeoVegas. And then, I mean, the industry is so fast and we have such a high pace. So it didn't take long before I had different kind of roles and positions within LeoVegas. And then in the end, I was the interim CMO there before moving back home to Sweden again.
Yeah, fantastic. So you spent a good 2 years or so in in Malta?
Approx, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, it's a different life. Let's say that. Like we said before, I'm going 9.5 years strong now on this island, and I say it a little bit with excitement, but also with a little bit like, oh my God, what happened with the time?
I think, Pierre, I think you should stay. I've realized that the biggest kind of lie that we Swedes tell ourselves is that we like the different seasons in the year, and that's amazing to have the winter and spring and all of that. But I think it's just something that we say in order to survive in this dark Nordic country. But there are pros with Sweden, but there are also lots of cons, and the dark is definitely one of those. So stay in Malta as long as you can.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I mean, the other side on that is as well that, I mean, you learn how to appreciate the summer when you're Swedish. You know, you get beaten down in the winter, and like you really learn to appreciate those summer days.
Absolutely, but I mean, when we lived in Malta for a few years, I learned that it's actually possible to appreciate the sun also in the sunny country. So it's not only for the Swedes who start to appreciate the summers. It goes also when you're there.
That's fair enough. I mean, I love this little island, so I'm not going to complain at all. So Petra, I wanted to start it with a discussion today. Like you're saying, you're the CMO of the sports and casino of Svenska Spel, and what's your like philosophy in general for your approach to the marketing of Svenska Spel? I mean, as a state operator, do you approach it differently as you would do if you weren't a state-run operator? Does that put any limitations or opportunities on you?
Of course, to some extent it does. I mean, we are in the market, in the license market, on the exact same terms as everyone else, even though we are state-owned. But there is a different agenda for us and a different purpose, definitely, because we are here to some extent to help and to be kind of the norm when it comes to player protection. So there is definitely an aspect of that. And but it's also, I mean, there is a balance, of course, because if we want to be that norm, we also need to be at a big enough size to be able to kind of contribute. So we still need to have a commercial agenda, of course, and we want to gain market share in this market as everyone else. But I would say that looking at it now, when I've been in both kind of in both positions, I think that the biggest difference with being at Svenska Spel is our purpose and the way that we kind of actually give back the revenue to the public treasury. And that, of course, means that everyone at Svenska Spel have a kind of a different why on why we are in the market than the 100% private and listed companies, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point as well with the purpose. There's you guys on this Puff as well. It has the same type of mentality where, you know, it's a very like charitable type of organization. All the profits goes back to society, so to say. And I would imagine that internally this is something that you pride yourself over in general as an organization.
Yeah, of course we are, and it goes. We actually don't talk about it much because it's in our spines, I would say. We have been in this market for forever, basically, and we have lots of people that has been at Svenska Spel for 10 or 15 years even. And that is, it's very obvious to us why we are in the market. And we need to try to kind of lead the development of player protection.
Mm-hmm. So how do you keep this balance between, let's say, you want to be the leader, obviously, in player protection, but also kind of gaining market share? Because, like you were saying, in some ways, those two are contradictory to each other, right? Like, how do you keep that balance? Like,
but to some extent, and also I think that we often talk about this balance, and I've done it myself many times, but it's actually, I mean, for the absolute majority of the players, it's just enjoyable. I mean, they don't have a risk of addiction. So that you can still do, or you can still grow that side of the business, and you can get more of the players' wallets at Svenska Spel than with our competitors. That we can definitely do, but at the same time, we can address the ones that are at risk and having a risk of developing an addiction. So I think it's not always contradictory, if you see what I mean. The important thing is to filter down to these players and make sure to put the actions and mechanics on where it's actually has an effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair enough as well. And I mean, Svenska Spel has always pride itself to be this operator who does take this responsibility. But do you think that at this stage, with the advancements in player protection in general, and with the regulation in Sweden, with all the additional protection that gives the player with spelpaus, for example, that is in Sweden and so forth, do you feel that the industry as an entirety is at a point right now where we have pretty much solved player protection, or are there still problems in the industry on a larger scale outside of Svenska Spel in the local market?
Oh, I see what you mean. No, we haven't solved it. I mean, if we would have solved it, we wouldn't have had any players with an addiction, and we do believe that we still have to some extent. So we haven't solved it. We think that the regulation is actually really good, and I think it played out really well when it started in 2019. And at the time, I was at Leo Vegas, and we saw that the players that we lost, if you want, was the right players, the ones that signed up to spelpaus. So it had a really good impact, and we think it's working well. But we do have people still that get into this addiction behavior, and we need to address that, and we need to continuously work on this, of course, at Svenska Spel, but also all the other operators and the SGA, of course, to make sure that we address those players. But I mean, the leap that we have taken from 2018 to 19 is, of course, it's huge, and no one is more happy about that than we are, of course.
Yeah, no, it seems like the entire industry has really taken a 180, and I think Sweden is a great example of that, because particularly in the Swedish market, there was a huge problem, I think, with the aggressive marketing at one point. But the regulator has really put their foot down in that regard. You know, we saw that with the revoking of some licenses on Ninja Casino, for example, which really, you know, it put a stamp on the market that, like, you know, if you're not careful here, there will be ramifications that's happening. And I think from an outside point of view, I can really see that has had a positive effect. But I mean, for you who actually, you know, you live in Sweden, you are surrounded by the advertisement, you know, on a personal consumer level as well. Have you seen the messages changing recently, like the last year? Have you seen this change that I am alluding to?
Well, I would say that the messaging, yes, to some extent, but most of all, we have seen that from, if we look at Q1 19 to Q1 2020, before Corona, we can see that the marketing spend is down to approximately half of what it was when we first regulated. So of course the amount
is that for Svenska Spel or for the industry?
No, for the industry.
For the industry, okay, thank you.
As a total. So things have definitely changed into in the right direction.
Yeah, Svenska Spel traditionally has never really like your acquisition strategy has never really revolved around this strategy anyway, right? Like this wasn't a big shift for Svenska Spel, I would guess.
No, it wasn't. We haven't used bonuses from that I know of at all, not even the welcome offer at Svenska Spel. There has been some cases in World Cup or something like that, but it's definitely to a very, very small degree.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so there's the change in kind of the marketing strategy now in Sweden, like you're saying, it's going from, you know, no more kind of aggressive offer towards the VIP, but the VIP segment. But another thing that I was thinking about as well in terms of marketing strategy is just the messaging in general as well. And I'd like to ask you, it'd be interesting to know, because again, like a year and a bit ago, it was very the messaging was very aggressive, like you know, you would like withdraw quick, you know, you have your money before you get to the next station if you're on the train.
That didn't play out very well.
Yeah, it didn't fare that well, right? And but it seems that at one point there was this very toxic messaging in general that was specifically targeting this part of the segment that are at risk. That there was no focus on the entertainment aspect, right? Can you see that changing as well?
It is changing to some extent, and I think that what you mentioned there, the Subway commercial, wasn't that the Ninja Casino that was kind of active with that, and they get rid of their license, wasn't that the case? And I think that after that really clear sign from the SGA, I've seen that it has definitely become more cautious with the communication when it comes to speed and so on. So yeah.
And in terms of your marketing strategy, then like what is your philosophy in general in this? Like, how do you come up with your messaging, and how do you want to position the Svenska Spel brand from a marketing perspective?
So we don't really position Svenska Spel Sports and Casino as a brand, to be honest. I mean, for us, we work with the brands that we have, and the ones that are mostly visible in above the line marketing is Streak, Tipset, and Oddset. And of course, there are different strategies between the different brands. But overall, I would say that Svenska Spel has a really kind of inclusive image, and that's what we want to keep as well. We want our brands and our messaging to be very broad. And of course, I mean, due to us not working with bonuses, we need to be a bit more creative in our production and what we do. So for us, and in addition to that, we also have a very high awareness of our brands. So we don't really need to work on awareness only. But we must make sure to work with preference more than anything. We want the players to actually choose Oddset in front of Bet365, for example. So that's what we do in our broad marketing. But then it's and what we are focusing on right now and will be the upcoming years is most of all making sure that customer experience once they are at Svenska Spel is amazing. And personalized and all of that, because we have quite a large chunk of the target group is with Svenska Spel, has an account with Svenska Spel. They have played Streak Tips at one time for 6 months ago or something like that, but then they spend the rest of the player wallet or gambling wallet with other competitors. And for us, giving that customer the right communication in the right time and personalized and all of that to make sure that we gain more of their wallet, that's the absolute most important that we can do at the time. Because rolling out an acquisition strategy for Svenska Spel in the Swedish market with the brands that we already have and with existing products, that's very difficult because the customers are in our universe already to some extent. Yeah.
So, but how do you compete? Like you're saying, if you want to have kind of the best product, and then you're up against the Bet365's, global multi-billion-dollar company. You guys are limited to just one little market that are now being more and more regulated, more and more difficult to find, margins and things. Like, how do you compete with these guys then?
But that's an extreme challenge, Pierre. It's very, very difficult. But I would say that how we are competing now and how we are building it up, it's unique products, because at the time at least we have some unique products, especially in Streak Tipset for sports and casino. And then we need to be best at gambling responsibility and player responsibility, because we still think that has some kind of USP to it in order to make sure that customers feel safe when they play Svenska Spel, and also that they feel this giving back to society, and actually that is the case. All the revenue goes back to society. So we hope that's something to compete with. But we are implementing, as we speak, a very important platform for MarTech and marketing automation, and being able to work better with trigger-based marketing and make sure that we give them a greater experience. But I mean, it is difficult. We are up against companies that can scale their business to 20, 25 markets, and we are at one very small market that we need to. So it is difficult to invest when you don't have that scalability. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, like you're saying, you have this genuine, deep kind of ethics embedded in the company as well, whereas maybe the others are much more ruthless when it comes to producing results than Svenska Spel are as well. So it's a challenge, obviously, but at the same time, you would think that this genuine approach to your strategy will also have a positive effect in the long run, with like obviously people will understand this in the Swedish market, that the Svenska Spel are the good guys, let's say, to some extent.
Exactly, and to some extent, and maybe or it is the case that goes well with the broad population. I don't think, or what we have seen, or what we did see at Leo Vegas, to be honest, in our data, is that the high rollers, they don't care about this aspect of Svenska Spel. So it doesn't go for everyone, but I would say that for our sports customers, most of all, they definitely appreciate, and we are at the top rank of that image of taking the responsibility. So
yeah, fair enough. From another perspective now, Petra, as well, obviously now the regulator is being very strict in Sweden, and there's deposit limits and other measures that are tightening the market, and oftentimes from the wider industry, there is there are voices that are complaining, let's say, that the regulator is listening more to Svenska Spel's requests or opinions, so to say, which are benefiting them more than the wider industry, so to say. Is that, like, what is your opinion on that in general? It's a controversial question.
I wish that was the case.
Yeah.
No, but from my perspective, I haven't seen up until now, at least, that they listen any more on sports and casino when it comes to these cases. We're as affected as everyone else. But of course, I mean, our business model look a little bit different than others. We have this broad customer base. We have a lower average revenue per user, or lower NGR per user than the casino-focused operators, for example. So if we look at the implementations of this new regulation on COVID-19, we are of course affected, but we are not as affected as a casino-only operator, of course. So maybe you tend to believe that it's in order for us to have a better position, but I would say it's more, the reason is more that we already are at a position where we have a more kind of a stable business with a broad customer base, with a lower NGR per customer.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not that the regulator is treating you or treating the others unfairly. No. It is more that you are already adopted this type of strategy that the regulator is going towards anyway, so to say.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah, cool. So just back to marketing topic in general. Like I personally love marketing in general, and I'm
You're
addicted
good at
to.
It, yeah.
Yeah, you think so? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I love to kind of look into classic marketing campaigns that have been kind of changed the landscape throughout the years and stuff like that. And as a fellow expert marketer, I would say even. I wanted to ask you, Petra, what do you feel? Let's start. This question will go on to the second question.
Okay. Yeah.
If we stay within the iGaming industry, what would you say is like a marketing campaign that you've seen that you are really inspired of, or that you think that like that was a great campaign? It doesn't have to be Svenska Spel.
Oh my God! Oh, that's difficult. A great marketing campaign.
Or it could be a brand as well, like a brand positioning, who positioned them well. Or I know it's difficult to think of a specific campaign, on the top of your head, maybe.
But I can say a strategy that I'm quite impressed by is Bet365's marketing strategy. I mean, they managed to build on a global sponsorship, or whatever it might be, and they scaled that out to all the different markets with just one kind of person being the forefront person, and that works really well, and I can just assume that it's also very cost efficient. So I can definitely be impressed by that. I think they're doing a really good job when it comes to that.
Yeah, fair enough. I would say from my end, I won't say it not anymore that much, but back in the day, I thought that Betsafe was like the ones that stood out. Like
okay.
if we roll back the tape to like
Yeah.
my days, let's say when I was in the industry, and I'm not beating my own drum here because I used to work for Betsafe, but but I thought that the Betsafe brand really positioned itself as like the cool, like this is the brand you want to like, you know, if you play here you're cool, you know, like it was very much like how Red Bull built their brand, which is like you want to wear their brand, you know. It's cool to wear their brand, and that's where Betsafe positioned itself too. It was like when we produced the merchandise, it was like just with the logo and different versions of the logo, and people would you know, with pride wear that merchandise. And I think Betsafe did that super well actually. I don't know why I feel they lost it a little bit now the recent years. They kind of lost that edge a little bit as the edgy brand. I wanted to be different, but definitely for me that was a brand that really stood out as like a really edgy, cool brand. I remember, as you said, a short story. I used to go to WSOP in Las Vegas every year to work. Basically, this was before before I started this company. In the back then in the WSOP, there was a little bit of a war between the brands, the poker brands, who could brand the players during the World Championships in poker. Then, and there was a year where PokerStars, I think I can't remember if it was full. No, it was after full. It was, I think it was Party Poker and 888. They were paying. They were paying you like $1,000 just to wear their brand in this tournament, you know. And so there was like a huge incentive for the players to wear, you know, the branded merchandise and whatnot. But even so, with Betsafe managed to get the players branded just because of the merchandise and the brand identity was still so cool. So this to solidify that point a little bit, that they did a good job on that note. Okay, so that was the first step of the question. So now then, if we look to the wider you know, business world in general, if we look at larger organizations and so forth, I'd like to ask you the same question again then. What would be like organization or company that you were really impressed over, or that have like inspired you, or a single marketing campaign that has really inspired you?
Okay, I think it would have been great if I could have prepared for this question. It's so difficult to kind of come up with that. But
that's the excitement of it.
Let me be super, that's very much the excitement of it. But since I'm in Sweden, let me say IKEA. I mean, it's the obvious answer on that one. So I'm just gonna use that. They have done such an amazing and great job, of course, also with the business and the products and all of that. But marketing-wise, they are doing it really well, and they still are. I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you say Sweden, it's like the first thing people say. It's IKEA. Yeah. That's how embedded that brand is. Like that's how much they have taken the Swedish values and just put it in within their organization. It is just like IKEA equals Sweden. Sweden equals IKEA. It's pretty cool actually what they have done really with that brand. Yeah, very, very cool. I'm impressed on that side. I must say, I'll just say I agree with that. So I'll keep that as well as one of my favorite brands. Okay, to close this off today, Petra, I know you're not involved in the land-based casino side of Svenska Spel, but I wanted to just ask you in general still, like obviously now we saw you know, the first casino that ever opened in Sweden in Sundsvall and Svenska Spel, they you know, unfortunately closed down now during the pandemic, but it was not only because of the pandemic. If I understand it correctly, it has been a stagnant curve for many years. And that begs the question a little bit. Do you feel that the future of casino is online?
I mean, the obvious answer to that is, of course, yes, it is. But on the other side, you do see online businesses moving towards retail, for example. You have online businesses that actually create showrooms and people or places where people can meet and greet. And so I think that it might be the case that we see this online movement, and then we might go again back to actually meeting each other physically, which is basically what's going on at the land-based casino. So I mean, the entertainment and the will to entertain yourselves among and together with your friends and all of that, I believe that will still be there. Maybe not at the scale where it has been, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the land-based casinos actually ramping up. Maybe they will be fewer, but it will be an even better experience where they are going forward.
Yeah, I saw that with the Gothenburg casino has plans to expand, for example. You know, so that perhaps tells a story that there is room for land-based casinos still.
I think it should be. I mean, if you look at another industry, look at the movie industry. I mean, there are still cinemas out there. Even though you can watch basically every movie you want from your home, you still want to go to the cinema. So it's I think there will definitely still be a place for land-based casinos going forward.
We are social animals in the end of the day, and perhaps it's two different types of entertainment. Whereas you know, there's also different type of people. Some people are more introverted, perhaps, or some people prefer to sit at home to play and entertain themselves, so to say. Whereas some people prefers to be out with their friends and gamble, and there's a market for both, I guess. But with the tech literacy going up constantly through the generations, I think it's becoming more and more clear that divide, right? Because right now there is still a demographic who perhaps doesn't know how to play digitally, or it scares them to try it. You know,
but I think after COVID now, I think that they have all learned.
It has definitely pushed.
It was it was a very kind of fast learning curve that they needed to go into.
I would say that's the silver lining to COVID in general, right? It's the digitization in a lot of ways, and having to rethink a lot of things and becoming more efficient. And even these type of conversations, you know, like, you know, before COVID, it was a little bit strange to have a Zoom call. You know what I mean? It's like we weren't really comfortable doing that.
I mean, being in an international company, I think we're used to Zoom calls, but it was a little bit strange to have. I would say that the challenge with Zoom calls is when you are more than 3 people but less than 10, and you want to have this kind of discussion going on and workshop format and all of that. That's basically impossible. But I mean, everything else is working really fine, I would say, and now with all the webinars showing up, that's an amazing way to learn new things. It's so convenient. And now this call, it has also been very convenient. I just zoomed in with you for an hour, and then I can continue with my day. It's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, exactly. I didn't have to fly to Sweden to meet you today, Petra, although I wouldn't have minded to do that, to be honest with you. But it's fantastic, actually, to be able to do this. You know, I reached out to you on LinkedIn. I was really curious to just generally have Svenska Spel's perspective, and it's really nice to have this conversation, and then you know, to get to know you, Petra. You are a super interesting and great person as well. So you know, like this is the silver lining to COVID, I would say. This type of moments. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Thank you so much for today, Petra. Really interesting to hear the perspective of Svenska Spel. Many times in this podcast we have talked about the Sweden and the regulator and Svenska Spel and so forth. So it's super interesting to just to have you here and talk to you about it. So I want to thank you for that today. Do you have anything to close off with today?
No, not really, but thank you too. And I hope that I was able to shed some light on Svenska Spel and our view on the market and all of that. And it was great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, brilliant, Petra. And I wish you a really nice day there in Sweden. I hope it's not too bad. I can see out your window, so it looks okay. It looks okay. Brilliant. I wish you a great day, Petra. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.